Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Well, I had an upload out earlier, and I told everyone I was going to have Lewis on to share an update and a couple of encounters that he heard in his general vicinity. When he heard Adam's upload the other day, Adam shared his wife, sister, and friend's encounter in North Carolina. Lewis immediately reached out and said, "Hey man, that's in my area. I want to come on." And I said, absolutely. Before we get into today's upload, though, a couple of links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that, well, they really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Also, please, everyone, our subscriber friend, Elizabeth, she's been with the family for a long time here. She is very active in the comment section. She emailed me earlier today. She tragically lost her son in a motorcycle accident. Please, let's all keep her and her family in our prayers. It's a hard time for her, and I cannot imagine what she's going through, because it's truly heartbreaking. After I read her email, I had to go and hug my daughter, and I couldn't imagine what she's going through. So let's keep her and our family, or her and her family, in our prayers today, and that'll be great. Thank you, guys. Now, enough of me talking and enough of the tragic news, but let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? All right, guys, today I have a guest that you guys are familiar with and have grown to like me. Great guy, Lewis, and the other day he heard Adam, and they live very close to each other, and Lewis immediately shot out an email to me saying, I cannot believe this. It validated everything I said. I got to talk to you. And I said, all right, let's communicate. And today I give you guys Lewis. Lewis, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. All right, well, I'm just going to give you the floor and let you share everything that you want to share. Actually, guys, really quick, we were recording for about 4 minutes and we had to start all over again. So this is a retake. Lewis, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Have at it, buddy.
All right. I want to tell everybody thanks for coming on and listening to my encounter, and for all the support that everyone gave me when I did give my encounter. And I want to tell Adam thank you for coming on and with his encounter stories, and that kind of validated me and made me feel better. I lived about a mile to a mile and a half away from Dale Earnhardt Industries off of Highway 3 in Rowan County when I had my encounter while I was cooking on the deck of my home. So that was kind of unique there. You know, that's not far, just a creek over and through the woods, and there was Dale Earnhardt Industries. And he also mentioned Highway 73 that comes out of Mooresville on the lower part of the lake, and you cross over a bridge, and that is McGuire Nuclear Plant. And Lake Norman is on the top of the dam, and at the bottom it's a Catawba River chain, which turns into Mountain Island Lake. And it's all woods for miles, thick woods. That's where Revolutionary War battle that took place in the 1700s. What has happened to me since, I had 2 loads of dirt that was brought to my home. I have a wraparound driveway, and I had to have it put there. I'm trying to rebuild the back of my home, some brickwork and some water damage where it had washed out. When the dump truck driver delivered the second load of dirt, it was still light outside. It was starting to get dim. And he noticed one of these creatures down in the woods, and he was like, "What the hell is that?" And I was like, well, what are you talking about? Because I didn't want to freak him out, because I knew he was going to bring me some more dirt if I needed it. And I said, "What did you see?" And he said, "Something big and black." And he said, "It looked like a big wolf." I said, "Well, I know there's wolves around here." And so anyway, he left. And this was about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. I was out on my tractor trying to spread this dirt, and it was about 7:30 in the evening. I had started at about 5. I was trying to get it done because it was supposed to rain. I was wanting to get it packed down before it started raining. And I had cut my headlights on my tractor and just kept working, and it started getting darker, and you could see just a little bit. And I noticed there were 2 figures down in the woods, and the one figure was the one that I sent the photo of to Jeff. And there was another one which was smaller, and I could make out breast on this one, so I think it was a female. They didn't have the dog type legs, which leads me to believe it's the werewolf type. And one of them let out a scream, and I had my phone on me, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to capture this scream." So I pulled my phone out and put it on record, and they walked around down there a little bit, and then they come back up. I tried not to stare at them, and they were probably a good 100 yards away from me. And I was just getting ready to shut my recorder off, and then I got the scream again. So I did get it, and I will be sending it to Jeff. A couple of days after that, I had went, I got done. I said, "Okay, I'm finishing up with my dirt. I'm going on in. It's getting dark." So a couple of days after that, I've been up remodeling my home on the inside, and it was about 3 a.m. and I was washing dishes at the kitchen sink, and I have a window that's like an octagon style window. It's about, I'd say, almost a little bit over 2 foot wide and 2 foot tall. And while I was washing dishes, I got a growl, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, and my dogs started barking and growling, and they had been asleep, just laying in the living room in their beds, and they ran over to the kitchen area and were just going crazy, whining and growling, and then I got a tap, and I didn't open the window. I didn't want to see what was there. And so a couple nights after that, I was working here in the house, and I was in the living room working on my mantle for my fireplace, and I heard a tap at the window, and again, it was around 3 a.m. I've been staying up late trying to get some of this done. And immediately the dogs jumped up, ran over, and was sniffing and growling and barking and running around the kitchen. And so I walked over to the window, and I heard a tap, and I opened up. I said, okay. No, I'm sorry. I took my hand and tapped on the shade, and they're wood shades. And when I did, I heard a growl again. And so the dogs are really going off now. So I opened the window up slowly. It's got the little twist rod, and like I said, it's made of wood. And there, staring me in the face, was the hugest thing I've ever seen in my life. From a distance, I knew it was big, but I didn't realize exactly how big it was. His whole head filled up the window, and the window is like 7.5 feet off the ground. And I could tell it was bending over because I could see the way that its head was positioned and the arch in its back and its mane. And we stared at each other for just a minute. I'd say probably 20 seconds, no facial expressions. I could see his fangs in the front, and he had yellow eyes. I did notice that the eyes had not a dot, but like a snake. It's like a black slit that went not all the way down through the eye, but about halfway from the top and from the bottom. They were not circles. And we continued to stare at each other, and he smiled at me from one side of his mouth. I think that's what he was doing. So when he did that, I had told my dogs to hush and everything, and he was watching me as I pointed my dogs off to the living room to their beds, and, you know, they walked away. They were growling, but they walked away, and he did that, and he was looking, and then he was smiling at me through one side of his mouth. So I smiled back at him the same way, and his head cocked to the side, and I didn't fear anything. I didn't feel any fear. I was more amazed at what I was looking at, and then it automatically growled at me, showed me all its teeth. Well, when it did that, I did the same thing back to him, showed him all my teeth, and growled back. Well, when I did this, he just stared at me and got backed up about a foot from the window and growled real hard, so I growled real hard back. He showed me his teeth, and then he took off out into the middle of my yard and run like 2 circles around and bluff charged my window, growling at me again, and I growled back. And then my dogs were going crazy again, and he started walking off, and he turned his head to look back at me, and I went ahead and shut the blinds. And I went and got my weapons because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so there was something else before I go any further. There was something that I forgot that I had left out. Me and a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, he had bought a new dirt bike, and on my property, I used to race, and years ago I had built a motocross track on about 4.5, 5 acres of my land. And it had jumps, triples, and everything, and it's all grown up now. So me and him he'd got a new 450 four-stroke, and me and him had went down there, and he was on his bike, and I told him I needed to change shoes before we went down there, but actually I came in and got my weapon, and I did change shoes, and we went down there and went around, looked at part of the track that we could get to. It was all grown up, and he said, if you don't mind, help me, we can take the tractor. And I said, yeah, I'd like to get another bike, and maybe that'll help my health to get down here and ride again. And so we were checked everything out. We had no problems. So the very next morning, around 11 o'clock, I walked down in the woods. I did have my pistol on my side, my 45 Glock, and I went down to the little stream part. It used to be a pond that I had built, but I had to drain the lake because the dam was leaking, and now it's a stream that comes through there. And the water's fairly shallow, and there's a lot of quartz, and sometimes I go down there, I can find gold dust and little nuggets. So I was down there, and I was down there for about 15 minutes, and there's embankments on each side that's about 10 to 15 foot high. And I was right at the very start of where the water comes around the bend from my property, and all of a sudden there was a growl, a deep growl, and I unsnapped my pistol and pulled it out, and I was squatting down, and I set it on my leg. And then there was another growl from the other side, and I was terrified then. I really didn't know what to do. So I got up, I holstered my pistol. I was looking around both times that the growls were happening. I never saw anything. And it sounded like they were 5 foot away from me, but I never saw a thing. And I just walked up out of the woods onto my off of my property, in the woods, and come up to my house. And that's what happened there. Now, to get back to when he was in my window, now this has I think it was the very next evening. I've got a 6-foot fence to keep my dogs in the back, and it's 9 foot now because I have taken and put electric wire around with it's like cattle wire, and it's electrified. And that night, the lights dimmed in the house, and I heard a yelp and some commotion. And then the next day when I went out, the wire was like pushed down. There was some broken branches. I think what it did was it touched it and it lit him up, and he hit it and it shorted it out. It had blown a fuse. So I fixed it and I put a new fuse in there and rerouted the wire a little different. But it has been to my window at least 3 times since. Not every night. I had it come 2 nights in a row, and then it would skip a night, and then it'd come back the next night. And I heard it last night. I don't know if it's going to happen again tonight or not. But it's tapping on my window, and if I don't go open the window, which I'm not going to, then it'll growl, and then my dogs go crazy, and I just won't open the window and just leave it at that. I just think that it's better off for me not to look at him anymore. I don't know if that really ticked him off, if me staring him down, or what, but kind of let sleeping dogs lie. No pun intended. But that's where I'm at right now, Jeff.
Right. No.
I'm hoping that it's not going to come back. I don't want to do anything rash to these creatures or anything, but I'm kind of fed up, Yeah. And also, I have a couple other friends that I'm trying to get to come on, or at least write in with their encounters. I've got a friend that lives about 5 miles away from me, and he owns at least 1,000 acres, if not more, of old family property farm that's been his family for a couple 100 years. And he actually had one of his horses, and it was it was probably about 6 months old, because he had shot me pictures of it, sent me pictures of it, and said, look at my new baby, that was born. And in the field where he had it, he noticed something that was stalking it. So he grabbed his rifle, and this is somebody that's not going to lie to me. I've known him for years. And he grabbed his rifle, and he jumped on his other horse and chased this thing down through the pasture to the edge of the woods. And when he got to the edge of the woods, he started to turn around and to go back home. And when he chased this thing, it was on all fours. And when he started to turn around to come home, he heard a growl and looked back, and it was standing on 2 legs. And his words was, I steadied my rifle and I put a round through that son of a bitch's head, and he dropped like a rock. That was his exact words. And I asked him, I said, well, did you go over and look at it? And it was dead. He said, I seen half of his head fly off. And he said, but I didn't want to get close to it. He said, I've never seen nothing like that in my life. And and he told me, I can't remember if he said it was the next day or the day after that, he had went down there because he never seen any buzzards or anything flying around. And he said usually when he has a calf or something die or something on his property, he has buzzards, but he never seen any, and he went down there and it was gone. And but he knew that he had killed it, but he didn't know what it was. So that's everything that's happened to me since.
Yeah, that's.
And
you guys live in some strange. It. You guys live in some strange area. Adam, it was cool that Adam reached out to validate what you had to say and share those encounters with us, because that added validation to you, and I know that made you feel good, because you've been holding on to these encounters and tell people, and people just mock you or kind of think you're crazy.
Yeah, because people think that you're crazy.
Yeah,
and you're telling them exactly what's happening, but it's in your mind, and you're like, do I tell anybody, or do I just keep my mouth shut and just hope it never happens again? Or you can't think straight, because these things aren't supposed to be around. And I've actually seen. I know this is not a Bigfoot channel, but I've actually seen a Bigfoot before. And it was not aggressive or anything. It was when I was hunting one time, but it just looked at me and then turned around and walked off.
Right.
And I got out of the woods. That was it.
Were you?
I knew they were Bigfoot, but I never, knew that creatures were like this, you know.
Yeah. How close to your house? I mean, because I really don't have a preference. You know, I mean, I know there are Dogman channels strictly, and then Bigfoot channels strictly. An encounter is an encounter in my eyes. You know, it's just something that we were told that doesn't exist. How close to you or close to your area were you when you saw that Bigfoot?
I was in Uwharrie National Forest.
Okay.
That is about an hour and a half away from me.
All right.
Yeah, if you, yeah, I would say about an hour and a half. You got to go through Mooresville, and it's up Highway 49 going towards. If you keep straight, you would go towards Raleigh or to the zoo, North Carolina Zoo.
All right. If you don't mind, would you care sharing breaking that down for us, that story?
Well, what happened was it was kind of crazy on how it happened. I had went to go hunting, and when I got up there, I left my house at about 4:30, and I wanted to get up there before it was, light. And I had a flashlight with me, and I got out. I parked my vehicle, and I got out and was walking through the woods with my flashlight and my rifle. And I guess it was about 5:45 then, close to 6 o'clock. It was still dark. And, it was cold, wintertime. And so I'm walking through, and I get probably 500 or 600 yards back into the woods, a place that I know that I hadn't been into in the daytime. And it's going to sound kind of crazy, but what ended up happening was I was walking through the woods with my flashlight, and all of a sudden, something snorted so loud, made a loud noise, and it scared me so bad that I turned and ran slap face first into a tree, dropped my light, dropped my gun. The light, I guess the bulb went out in the flashlight, and it was pitch black. And I reached in and got my cigarette lighter and flipped my cigarette lighter and went over to try to find a tree to get up against because I was freaking out. I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden, when I went around the tree, there was a monster buck that was laying there at the tree that had snorted at me. So the buck scared me half to death. And so I propped up against a tree, and once I knew that it was a buck that scared me, then I said, okay, well, I'm okay. Everything's good now. I kind of recuperated, got my senses back to me, and just waited for it to lighten up because I didn't have a flashlight then, and because I was going to make my way to where I was going to put my stand. And so as soon as it started getting light, I picked up my rifle. I tried my flashlight again. I had been messing with it, and I unscrewed the front of my flashlight, and just to see if I had broke something. And yeah, I to the bulb, and I found out later when I had got home. But I walked about 100, I'd say 150 yards through the woods, and then I started smelling this terrible smell, and it almost smelled skunkish and like garbage, kind of like rotten garbage and a skunk. And I thought I was going to come across a dead animal or something, and I kind of changed. The way the wind was blowing, I I knew that it was coming from that direction. So I said, okay, well, changing plans. I'm going to go over to the right, and I can go around that area because I wanted to get up by where the river come in, because there was a water source there, and I knew there, I had bagged a couple right there before. And I kept walking, and the smell just seemed to linger. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy, because I had walked about 100 more yards. And as I'm walking, I see a figure about 100 yards up in front of me, and it jumps behind a tree. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I'm sitting here looking at this thing. And I'm like, okay, what is this? And I said, it's got to be a Bigfoot, because Bigfoots has been sighted up there. I mean, there's a lot of history up in that area in Uwharrie of Bigfoot sightings. And so I stood there for a minute, and I seen a hand come around the tree and its head come around the tree, and we just stared at each other. And then he stepped right out in the open, and I'm sitting here looking at this thing, and its face was flat. It had a flat forehead. It had a big nose. I remember that. And it was like a medium brown color. The hands kind of looked like a gorilla's hands. They were dark colored. I didn't really get a good look at its feet because there was leaves on the ground. And I would say it was probably about 8 foot tall, maybe 9. About 450, 500 pounds, I guess. I mean, it was huge. And so I just started backing away, and then it turned and walked off. And I decided that I wasn't going to hunt that day. So I, walked back to my truck, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah, I can't blame you.
Because I knew these things had existed, and I had family members, that had seen them, years ago.
Right.
And I had always been into the Boggy Creek stuff, and I've got a book that my mother had bought me when I was like 7 or 8, and still have it, and it's called The Legend of Bigfoot. And I still have that, because I was intrigued by those. But, if it was only them, because I think maybe it's like they're more humanly than these werewolves or dog men, and their temperament is a lot different that I can tell now. Maybe I haven't come across an aggressive one yet, because I've heard that there are aggressive ones out there, and I've heard stories of aggressive ones, but they seem to only throw rocks and stuff from people I've talked to that's had encounters, throw rocks at them. And I've actually been camping before at a campground, and at the what's the name of that lake? It's up Highway 64, Lake Jordan, best crappie fishing place in the world. And and they have a whole bunch of campsites, but it's a heavily wooded area. And I remember me and one of my friends were camping in a tent up there, and rocks were being thrown at us. And he thought that I was throwing rocks at him. He's like, man, why you keep throwing rocks at me? I'm like, I ain't throwing no rocks at you. And one come by me, and because I had my back turned to him, and I was like, hey, you don't need to throw no rocks at me, man. I wasn't doing that. He said, I didn't throw no rocks. So we both stood there and looked at each other, and there was rocks coming from in front of us and behind us. Just little rocks. And we were trying to figure out where they were coming from, but we never seen anything. and it was just weird. But after we left and I started hearing the stories about rocks being thrown, then I'm like, well, that had to be what it was. Even though I didn't see them.
Right.
Never smelt nothing or anything, but yeah, I mean, who would throw rocks at you?
Absolutely.
I mean, and the closest person, where we were probably 500 yards away.
Yeah.
And, they were, we knew they were at their campfire, and they were all sitting up there and somebody was playing a guitar. So, we knew they weren't doing it. So we were like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Sasquatch is definitely the culprit for the rock throwing.
Yeah.
The gentleman that I had on last night, he and I spoke for a little bit after the interview. And we were just talking about, Sasquatch stuff and Dogman stuff and other stuff, paranormal and conspiracy theory wise. But we got on the topic of, I forgot the name of the YouTube channel, but he's a hunter. It's not Steve How to Hunt, by the way, guys, but he just has a hunting channel, and they were looking at this beautiful lake, and all of a sudden rocks are getting tossed at him and the lake, and there's nobody for miles around, and he didn't know what the hell was going on. It was, and he shared.
Was the YouTube channel How to Hunt?
I just said no. It was not Steve How to Hunt.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It was nothing to do with cryptids at all. It was just a strictly like a hunting channel. It was a smaller channel, but not he. I think he had less than 50,000 subscribers, so he wasn't big like Steve, but bigger than my channel. But he didn't have anything to do, and that was the craziest part, because he had nothing to do with cryptids at all. And they were looking at, it was like a nature channel, almost like hunting, fishing, natural world or whatever. And these rocks are getting chucked at him, and he's like, what the hell's going on? And he's looking around and panning in and out, and they couldn't see anything. And he continued the video as the rocks were getting chucked. It was pretty crazy story. So, but
wow.
Yeah, I really enjoy having you on, Lewis. You're
thank you, Jeff.
A great guest. I really hope that you can get those gentlemen that to share their encounters with us. Even if they don't want to come on, let them know that I respect their anonymity. I won't even say their name. I'll make up some name. If they don't want to come on, I'll narrate it. But it's just really interesting that in your neck of the woods. I think one
of them I can get to come on possibly, yep. Okay. But the other, I know he will not come on,
right?
Because he's an older gentleman, and I might be able to talk him into sending in an email.
Well, even if he could just share the entire story with you, and you could tell it, like as a story that you heard from your area, because now we have you. And now we have Adam's family. There's 4 other encounters in your general vicinity, on top of another person that I know that lives in North Carolina, who is, they are a cryptozoologist researcher. She goes all around and pretty much goes all the way up to the Great Dismal Swamp and down, and it's just something's going on in the South. There's a lot of hot spots. I've said it and I'll say it again. It's Virginia, North Carolina. Well, Virginia and North Carolina are connected. You got Tennessee, Kentucky. It's just Mississippi. It's something is just really strong there for the Dogman and Sasquatch Another thing I brought up is we were talking, Mark and I, and he was like, we just kind of found it funny because Dogman, like you said, I didn't know what Dogman were. I just thought of Sasquatch. And I was like, what's weird is, because we got on conspiracy theory, I was like, what's weird is that I think the government really did just hide these encounters because the LVL happened, but there was mention of Dogman long before the 80s, 90s, 2000s, because in Louisiana you had the Rougarou, and that's the original friggin' Dogman. That Dogman term was key, or it was coined by Linda Godfrey for the Michigan Dogman, or not by her, but in Michigan. But we had the Rougarou well before the Michigan Dogman. I mean, there's been stories of these creatures. They were just covered up and not shared for some reason. And I'm sure down south, there's probably 80-year-old people, men and women, that have these stories and are just holding on to them, and it's like a gold mine of encounters down there. So,
sorry.
No, I'm done.
I know that my first encounter, but I didn't know what a Dogman was, when I was 5, when I told you about, that, and it was whitish gray, and, my mother thought it was the devil.
Yep.
That's what she thought it was, and it was kind of like I had forgot about it over the years as I got older,
Yep.
And then she shared that, with about what happened to my grandfather.
Yeah, your grandfather.
In Bessemer City. And then, there's 2 other things I was thinking about that I had thought about and I meant to share with you. I remember my grandmother, she lived, in Charlotte, but, it was a place that was wooded then, and it was a heavily wooded area, and she used to have a store, and a little country store.
Yep.
And across the street from her house was all woods. And I remember her telling me, because I used to ask her all the time, because she used to tell me about a old cow that she heard a bell and heard an old cow come out of those woods one time, and she was sitting on her front porch one time, and she seen the biggest wolf she had ever seen in her life. And there weren't supposed to be any wolves then. And I used to tell, every time I'd go see my grandmother, I'd say, Grandma, please tell me those stories again.
Yeah.
And now there was another encounter. I don't know if, now this was actually in the papers and the news.
I got about 6 minutes, so if we can fit it in 6 minutes, we're gold.
Yeah, at Lake Norman, up here at Lake Norman State Park, there was someone that had an encounter with a Dogman. I think it was a woman. She had an encounter with a Dogman. You can look it up, and it's at Lake Norman State Park, and that's just right down from me.
All right. You want to give us the gist on that in 6 minutes, quick? If you remember.
I really don't know all about it. Only thing I just read is the woman was, you can drive through the state park. It's heavily wooded, and there's campsites. You can't bring campers, no electricity, no nothing, and it's right, that covers the upper part of the lake, and it's real thick woods. There's no houses right in that area, and she was driving through the park, and ended up stopping to get out to look at one of the camping areas that she was thinking about maybe having a family come camp at, and she had seen this thing standing up behind a tree, and she got in her vehicle and hauled ass out of there.
I'm going to see if I can find
that's
that.
basically what the article said.
Right.
I mean, you can look it up. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look that up. Lake Norman. All right, that's awesome. Once again, it's always a pleasure having you on. You're a straight up classy guy. I like having you on. One thing that I do want to let everybody know is in case you haven't noticed, Lewis is gaining his ability or his speech ability back after the strokes. If you
Thank God.
If you go back and listen, he sounds 10 times better. And I'm glad that your health is getting better.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
You know,
me too. I've done a lot of praying, and I know when I first came on, it was hard for me to pronounce my words. I sounded like I was from way back in the sticks. But it's getting better. I can pronounce my words better, and I can get them out.
Yeah.
Because the problem was I knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth would not work right.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And you could hear it because, and people, we had told people that you had your strokes, and, it was almost like you were thinking about what you were saying. It wasn't you didn't sound bad. You had stroke, and it wasn't your fault. And I'm glad that
I've actually had 8.
8, yes.
8, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God.
Definitely.
I thank Him every day that I wake up and I go to bed.
Yeah. I'm really glad
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate it. Have a great day, and God bless, all right?
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to my encounters, and thank you again, Adam, if you're listening.
I'm pretty sure.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, buddy. What a hell of an upload, guys. It's always great having Lewis on. He is a true gentleman. Really great guy. I really am happy that his speech ability is coming back. 8 strokes, to live through that is a miracle, and then to regain your speech is another miracle. I know that he was embarrassed to come on, and because he had to. It almost sounded like he was thinking about what he had to say, but like he shared, he knew what he was going to say, but his mouth didn't work. And now, you can hear the progress that he's making, and it's friggin' amazing. It is a miracle. He also wanted me to include that the creature at his window, it had the atypical tufts at the top of its ear. Its muzzle was about 6 inches with gray around the muzzle. He wanted to share that with us. And I'm just happy with how this upload was. It was a great upload. It was a great upload to end the August month with. September 1st is tomorrow. Kiddies are back to school. My daughter will be doing virtual school from home, so I'm going to be a teacher and a YouTuber, I guess. I don't know. I am feeling better health-wise. I know that. My neuropathy is... My feet feel great lately. Little bit of pain here and there. I just got a new script for some cream to help with the neuropathy in the mornings. But I can tell you, after the surgery, it's night and day. I couldn't walk for a long time, and it was terrible. But I'm going to be getting out in the field. I'm going to be taking my GoPro, and I'm going to start doing some scouting and some real hands-on research. And that's how I want this channel to go. I want to have narrations. I want to have interviews, and I want to have some videos of me going out in the woods and, really doing some hands-on research. Now, when I'm talking woods, I'm talking the Adirondack State Park. And if you're not familiar with it, Google it. It's one of the, if not the biggest national state park in the United States. We have 46 high peaks here, and it is deep. So who knows? I might be finding something and having something on video to share. Anyway, with that, I'm going to bid you guys farewell, and I want to thank everybody for all their support. Thanks, guys.